things have value, things have meaning. We pass things down, right? Like, why is something important? Why is something of your grandmother's mean so much to you? Why does something that you know, and it could be something so dumb. When Carrie lost her Carrie necklace, that was a thing, right? But it meant something. To me, buying these dumb Chanel flats meant, oh, these are my flats. That's so fun. That's the thing I'm going to put on every day because I've worked really fucking hard, and those are the shoes I'm going to walk to work in. And that meant something to me.
Welcome to The Materialist, the podcast where we explore the stories behind the objects we bring into our lives and the people shaping the world of material culture. I'm your host, Mark Bridge, founder of At Present, matchmaker to extraordinary jewelry, and today we're diving into the glitzy, fast-paced world of fashion PR with none other than Gabrielle Katz. Gabby is a New York it girl and powerhouse publicist who's worked with iconic brands like Oscar de la Renta and now runs her own agency. She's here to talk about the art of thoughtful consumption, what it takes to modernize a legacy brand, and why being a materialist is not just about loving stuff. It's about loving the stories behind them. Get ready for a conversation that's stylish, insightful, and full of Gabby's signature wit. I'm so excited you're here. Welcome to The Materialist.
Welcome to The Materialist. I am here with New York it girl fashion publicist Gabrielle Katz. Mm-hmm. Delivered as written by you.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say, perfect. You're on message, which, you know, as your publicist is really important.
I appreciate that. The teleprompter that you have put together has been very good for me. I have had the delight of working for much of the last year with Gabrielle and her team, and I'm so delighted that she agreed to join us on the pod because she has a unique view on the world of everything material.
Correct.
Would you say that you are a materialist?
Yeah, I'm pretty shallow.
And we think that's the highest compliment. You feel otherwise?
No, I don't know another way to be. I think that's great.
Where do you think that came from?
Oh, I'm half teasing. I'm half shallow.
And the other half?
I'm very deep.
Good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's explore that duality.
Yeah. Is this therapy?
It is.
I did miss today. It was at 10 a.m. I was flying, so we could repurpose that.
It's only appropriate to air all of your inner work with the internet.
The internet.
Yeah, the internet's very understanding.
The internet is,
if you're familiar with the internet.
Oh yeah, it is quite the place to go to if you're looking for that. No, I think there's a difference between being materialistic and shallow about it, where like you just follow trends, and you'll see something, and I'm partially responsible for this machine where like you're like, oh, this is the only sneaker I should have, so I'm just gonna get that. This is the only bag I should have, so I'm just gonna get that. Rather than like actually really appreciate and want and like research and understand and hunt for and save or wait or scour and shop. And I think that is probably how I identify as a materialist.
Sell me on the virtuous materialist.
Thank you. I'm definitely gonna get some, what's it called? Not feedbacks, backslash for this, but no, I think...
If you haven't been canceled, it means you're not living.
Exactly, great. No, I think I was just having this conversation with someone. It's, for me, unless it was a Taylor Swift concert, going to a concert and spending a lot of money to like go to a different city and go to a town and like go, and then go to the concert and whatever, that's not my idea of an experience. But my idea of experience is traveling to Europe and going to like shop there, because like for me, one, I'm actually just coming back from Copenhagen, which is a very this actually speaks to it, but I like the art of shopping. Like, I like the hunt, like the thrill. I'm a very research shopper. I'm very decisive, but at the same time, it's because I know my stuff and I know what I want. But like, for instance, I love the brand Totême like every other girl. And they just opened a store in Copenhagen where I was from, or where I was visiting, where my family is from. And the Danish krona, because it's also a Swedish brand, the way it worked out, but most everything was like a considerable amount less to shop at this Totême store. And then plus it's advantageous to shop in Copenhagen because you get X amount of like tax back based on like how much you spend. So like I bought a pair of the Row like zip up Chelsea boots, and like I didn't actually pull the trigger on anything at Totême, but like I am regretting it. The sales associate did WhatsApp me today, just check in, see how I was feeling. So I have made a lifelong friend in Clara, and I will be back with this information. But like for me, it's like the idea of going, and it was fun because like I took my aunt, who I'm really close with, who like she will shop I'll shop for her, or she'll shop whatever. If I buy something designer, she'll find a lower price point version of it, or I'll find something at a sample sale and I'll always shop for her. But I brought her to the Totême store, and she was like, they were like, can we get you some water? And I was like, oh yeah, sparkling. And she was like, what are you doing? That's so annoying. And I was like, I mean, you could drop like anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 to $300 at the store. You should get a sparkling water. And it was just fun to go to. And she was like, the store is beautiful. This is such an amazing experience. And it's that, to me, that is my concert. I'd rather do that than go sit in like MSG.
Because
I love shit. Because I'm a materialist.
And where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. It's funny, when I was younger, when I was really little, and people came to our apartment, and they would come to my room, and people would be like, oh, do you want to play with your toys? And I was like, no, I want to show you my clothes. And I think it's actually something very innate in me. My grandma Sybil, on my dad's side, was super into fashion, but I think that's because her mother, my great-grandmother Rosie, owned a dress shop in Westchester. And when they moved to Florida, as all old Jewish women do, my great-grandmother Rosie would go to the local Lord and Taylor, because she no longer had the shop anymore, and she would stand outside the dressing room and be like, oh, you need a belt with that, or oh, that's not for your figure. And
just hardwired. She couldn't get away from it.
Yes, exactly. So I think I maybe like innately grew up with that. But yeah, that was always a thing. I don't remember not loving fashion. I don't remember not loving clothes.
And what was your exposure? You had familial exposure. Were there like Vogue magazines floating around your house growing up? Was this something that your mom talked about? Was this something you were just like standing on the street watching people?
I think part of it was being really little when we lived in the city. So just being around shopping. My Aunt Lisa tells the best story of me of all time, which is we went to Harry's Florsheim on the Upper East Side, or Upper West Side, where I'm from. And we go shoe shopping. And she was like, as my present for like back to school or whatever, was going to buy me like a pair of like shoes. And I see a pair of, I was obsessed with The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy was my North Star. And I saw a pair of red sparkly shoes. I had a lisp. I couldn't say sparkly. Red sparkly shoes. And I would not leave without them. And I needed to try them on. And Lisa, being like my shrewd aunt that she is, on my mom's side, was like, bought them for me for Christmas. I wasn't paying attention. That she slipped the shoes in with the like regular shoes. And she was like, okay, we'll think about it, Gabby. We have to get you these saddle shoes. And I was like, no, I want my sparkly shoes. And she was like, nope, you're not getting them. But she had bought them for me for Christmas. She said we walked from like 76th Street to like or I don't even know, till 80 whatever. And I was screaming down the street. She was like, I don't have any money with me. I don't have any cash with me. And I go to the ATM. I need my sparkly shoes. Screaming. She was like, people must have thought I was like abusing you. She was like, finally, you were so insane that I had to like stop in the middle of the street and be like, okay, I bought them for you. This is your Christmas present. But that got me to calm down. But yeah, I don't know. It's very innate.
And was it clear from that point or shortly thereafter that there was a career that could be spent in doing this, or were there meanders in the path along the way?
There was I definitely always wanted to work in fashion, but I wanted to be a writer. I loved Emily Bronte. I studied literature and creative writing in college, and like I thought maybe there was like a path there. It was my mother, and I hate to give her credit for this, but I have to, who told me I should consider PR, because it was a nice balance between being an effective communicator in terms of writing, and also being like the logistical tyrant that I grew up to be, and also that I could have a path in fashion. And when she told me that when I was in college, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And when I graduated college, I graduated in 2009. So at the height of the crash, it was a terrible time.
People were very focused on fashion at that point.
People were really looking for upstart assistants to join the ranks, and I couldn't get a job. But I wrote to every journalist, every editor. I wrote handwritten notes. I sent my resume to every major fashion house and small fashion house. I did whatever I could while nannying for this family that I'm still very close with, the Basilevskis. And that was like my first kind of eventual getaway into it. And then I started working for a client of my father's who had an interior design website. Like you could shop on it, Appointed House. You can shop on it. It's still up and running. She's great. And I launched her social media, which at the time was just Facebook and a blog spot. And I wrote about a Lee Joffa Oscar de la Renta collaboration. And I was obsessed with Oscar PR Girl, who was my favorite Twitter follower at the time, and Erica Behrman, who would eventually become my very first big boss and my mentor and one of my dearest friends to date. And she posted that she was looking for an assistant. And no, I don't think anyone's...
The clouds part, the Hallelujah chorus starts singing, the horns are playing.
Anyone has applied for a job faster. The family, Christine Basilevsky, the mom of the family that I worked for, I told her... Hi, Christine. She bought me a Millie dress to wear to my interview. She actually bought me 2 Millie dresses from Nordstrom Rack. She's actually one of an amazing mentor for me in terms of not just like fashion. And she told me what Tory Burch was before I could understand. She was a Greenwich, New York City mom, but she would take me to sample sales. She taught me how to shop. She was amazing at being able to find a sample sale, and we'd go online. We'd drive around with the girls, and I was like her. She taught me that. But she has an amazing eye.
You were the apprentice.
I was her apprentice, and she's an interior designer, so I understood. She also taught me how to boil water. That was pivotal.
Not something from your family of origin.
My dad's a really good cook, so I was very spoiled about the boiling of the water. But I think when you're in charge of people's children, that's also a life skill I needed to learn.
How else are you going to feed someone macaroni and cheese for 9 meals a week?
Exactly. Christine was amazing at that. But yeah, through this whole entire circle, I went off tangent. But yeah, she bought me my 2 Millie dresses for my interviews. I interviewed for a really long time. I didn't get the job at first. They went with someone else, and it didn't work out. And a few months later, and I was like, that's my job. Something's not right. That is my job. That is my path forward. And eventually it was my job, and it was my path forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you spent time in-house for a number of big brands and then went in the sort of corporate PR realm.
Yeah. So I was only in-house at Oscar, which I don't think you're not really in-house. You're in the cult, in the family. You don't really leave Oscar. Oscar leaves you. It's one of those things.
That's a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm still so close with everyone that works there. We still have...
What does one call an Oscar right? Is there a tribal name?
I don't know what we call each other.
All right. But
we do. And we call each other often.
Don't know what you call each other, but regularly.
Regularly.
Yeah.
We have regular standing dinners and whatnot. And it's a very... I will say, I'm so blessed with everything that I've had in my career, but there's been no bigger blessing than having worked at Oscar de la Renta, and I would probably even include my own company in that. To work for someone of Oscar de la Renta's image and clout and stature at a time where he was designing, at a time that the succession plan was being discussed, at a time that John Galliano came in for a residency. Just no one else who works in American fashion will really get that experience, because there's
nobody else like that in American fashion.
There isn't. And this is no knock on a Ralph or a Donna or no knock on a Michael Kors, none of that. But that was a French atelier. The way that was run is completely different.
It just happened to be in New York.
It just happened to be in New York. And you understood, working for Oscar de la Renta, you understood house codes and what that actually meant. And I've taken those. I understood how lucky I was to have that job, and I think about that a lot. And I try to tell the people that work for me now too, how lucky I was to have that job, because it doesn't exist, maybe even now. But I don't know. I always come back to it, because there's a standard of which work needs to be done. And I feel like I learned that there. I went up the ranks, and I did it in a really uncomfortable heel and a pencil skirt from 7 in the morning until 10 at night. That was how we worked. The girls and I in the office would be going out with finance boys, and they're like, oh, I can't meet you until 10 p.m. And we were like, neither can we. The paychecks were very different, but it was the same kind of mentality.
And what was unique about that culture? How did they operate?
It's a family-run business, and you're working towards something that's bigger. And it's a huge name, but it's a really small business. I think the best job I ever had, the coolest job I ever had, was I would get in at 7 to make sure that Mr. had all of his papers, and I would flag them and read them. I would make sure if there was anything that we were not just us being mentioned, but if Mr. Kissinger was mentioned, or something that was important that he might need to know, flag it. handed off to Fernando Garcia, who's now the co-creative director of Oscar de la Renta, because he'd be in shortly thereafter, and make sure that was on his desk. And yeah, that gave me discipline, I had a sense of pride in my work. It sounds like such a dumb job, but it was the most important job I've ever had.
And you go from there?
I went from there to PR consulting. I never wanted to work at an agency, and I never wanted to own my own business, which will take us to eventually.
Will bring us to the present.
Which will bring us to present day. But I worked at PR consulting, which was an incredible crash course. I think at an agency, you're just so much more dynamic. Granted, at Oscar, you're dynamic in so many different ways, but you're not strategic. Or strategic in a traditional sense of public relations. I never had to write a strategy. I never had to think about how we're going to pitch this eyewear launch. It was more about saying no to people than asking people to say yes. And so at an agency, I had to learn how to be graceful and tactful and get people to say yes. And a lot when they mostly wanted to say no. So I went from PR consulting, and I was there for a number of years. I had an amazing experience. I made incredible friends. I learned from Pierre Roger and Sylvie Piquet, who are like two of the most respected publicists of our time, and rightfully. And then I went on to Karl Otto, and I really made the move to Karl. I really made the move to Karl Otto because it's a global experience. And Karl Otto, the woman, was so inspiring. And when I spoke to her, I really wanted to learn from her and work with her. And for me, it was more about doing something. I really love traveling, and I wanted to work with more ready-to-wear, and I had a lot of accessories brands. It was just like a right fit for the moment. And I had an incredible 5 years there. Before then, yes, starting my own agency, which I never wanted to run.
And then the world blows up.
So the world blew up, and I stayed through it because glutton for punishment. So I made it through COVID. And before Oscar, I left out a pivot when you asked me why I should be a publicist. Part of being a publicist is also being a party planner.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I'm a good publicist, if I can say that, is because
you have said that, and then other people have repeated it. So that's how we know you're a good publicist.
Exactly. Well, if you just say things, it's a little Trumpy of me.
Absolutely. What are people saying?
It worked, apparently, twice. Anyway, but it's because, one, I have a really large family, and I've spent a lot of time managing difficult personalities who love to party.
Okay.
And what I do as a publicist is manage a lot of difficult personalities who love to party as well. And before I knew I was good at any of that on my own, my friends, it was our first year out of college, and none of us knew what we wanted to do for New Year's Eve. And people were like, oh, should we go I'm from New York City, and I was like, I don't want to spend another New Year's Eve at a Midtown bar, Turtle Bay, where it's like $250. We have to think of something else. There has to be a better option. We've aged out of this. At 22, I was ready to age out of that. And instead,
that's how you know you've grown up in New York, because you were already tired of life.
Yeah, I was already tired of life. And I was like, fuck it, I think I can figure this out. And I went on Craigslist, and I found a rental space, which was a loft space, which was just like a random office that's actually 2 blocks away from where we are right now. And I was like, okay, I think I can rent this space from this dude, and like I can just get a bunch of booze, hire a DJ, and sell tickets. And I marketed it as the party at the Lofts of Chelsea. The Lofts of Chelsea is so generous. It was above a random pizza place. It was
loft means above, you were zip code wise in Chelsea.
And I was in Chelsea, and it had one bathroom. I sold first 3 weeks before, you can get the tickets for $45, then it was $75 2 weeks before, and then $100 at the door. And I ended up having to get security because we had so many people, but I got my dad's pot dealer, Ashley, to be our security guard. He was a big fixture in our house. I had a DJ. I bought all this booze. I made thousands and thousands of dollars, and I financed my first apartment in the city. And it was a raging smash. But I'm telling you about Hotel Chelsea because I made so much money, and my girlfriends, we didn't know where we were going to stay, and I needed this money so I could get my own apartment outside of my family's, outside of them. And I rented a suite at Hotel Chelsea. It was $680. It was Ethan Hawke's sweet.
I just read that yesterday that he lived here, and he wrote a novel that I read, and it seemed to me that it was based here.
It was.
Yeah.
It was here. I ordered Chinese food. We all pre-gamed here. We went to the lofts, and then we all had a party here afterwards. And it was before, obviously, it's now this beautiful place. But Hotel Chelsea will always have a soft spot for me.
And you learned one of the seminal rules of retail: buy in bulk, sell individual.
Yes, exactly.
And it's a little bit foreordained as a result of that experience that you were going to be an entrepreneur. You were going to go do your own thing.
Yeah.
You said, all right, I'm going to go set off and I'm going to be the captain of my own ship. What does that feel like?
It depends on the day. Today I like it. Tomorrow I have a call. I'm not so sure I'm going to like it, but I'm sure I'll like it by the end of the week again.
You get to spend the day with your favorite clients today, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I flew back for this.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. That's service with a smile. But
5 out of 5 would recommend. Even on a podcast, would recommend.
yes. No, I think like at the end of the day, when I wanted to do my own thing, I have... I'm an English major. I'm not like a business whiz. I like still every day I'm like Cher Horowitz. Like I always think like I'm like just like I have no idea what I'm doing. But now I do, but I don't. I think we all have that. It doesn't matter where you've been and what your path is. But I always feel like I'm like raising donations for the Pepto Beach Disaster Fund. And I think that Pismo Beach Disaster Fund. And
Click here to donate.
So when I went, I didn't want to just make my own thing that was like Gabrielle, Katz Consulting, GK Inc. I didn't want my name on it because at the end of the day, I don't think that the name of an agency matters as much as the people that are a part of it and the people that are running it. And so at the end of the day, it's great if you know me and you want to work with me, but like I'm not as good. It's great if I'm good, but it's really who is underneath me or who is, next to me that is the actual like test of our strength. And how do you inspire people to work for you? Yeah, you can be really fun and you can be great. And I will say,
I am none of those things.
so I'm going to give you.
Could you give me some coaching on how to do this?
Let me give you some business school lessons. But I think, it's fun to motivate people by being a fun boss or wanting them to work for you because they're scared of you. That isn't ultimately effective, which was definitely a path I went down for a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, when we're all working together, I just realized that it's the account team and the clients, and those are the only things that matter to the lifeblood of an agency. How do we make the clients happy? We also, that's really important. That's the number one thing, but we also need to make sure that the account team is happy. And how do we do that? And when I founded Accent Projects, it's one called Accent because I think everybody can bring their own voice to the table. I think everyone should have a say in the success of what we're doing. Everyone should be working towards the same thing together, but we all sound and look a little bit different. And I pay my senior team on commission. So anything my PR director makes her salary is not fixed. So you get X percentage of every project fee or retainer fee that I give you. And flip that, if you bring in business rather than you get a payout, which I have never gotten a payout for bringing in business in my entire career, instead of getting a commission check for that, you get a higher commission rate on that client. And I think what the client understands is, oh wow, if I leave because I'm not happy with my service here, it's because it will affect the team. I think my team is really incentivized to work with me. But also, that there's no chief business officer that's going to sell you in on this shiny thing and then sell you this other team, which to no fault of the other team probably is overworked and underpaid. What you're going to get is somebody that actually is really, dedicated to you, that's your team, and in a way you're paying them. And I think that's alleviated a lot of stress. I think that's why we've had some long-standing relationships, and I think that I'm paying you to say this, by the way, that that like when
Do I get the commission for my own business next month?
No, but I'll maybe scrape some entertainment meals off.
Oh, okay, great.
But that like Hillary is just as good at her job as I am, and that like we're aligned. Even if I can't be on that call because I'm doing something else, that you still have someone that's super senior and super dedicated to you. And the way we can scale it is it can always be that way because every PR director can basically always have that kind of like fiefdom underneath the brand or underneath the company.
The general wisdom among entrepreneurs and business owners is that PR is bullshit.
Yeah.
Is it?
No.
Because
I won't have a job if I say it is.
Good, then sell in why.
I don't think PR is bullshit. I think that PR has changed a lot since I started, and I think that there's certainly some bullshit artists. I don't consider myself that, no matter what my dad would tell you about me in high school and breaking curfew. But I think that at the end of the day, PR today I think it's the most exciting time to work in public relations and communications and to be more of a 360 strategist, because it used to be like your worth was just like getting looks in a magazine. And now we can be so much more dynamic. Now we can be strategic thought partners. Now we can make collaboration introductions. Now we can say, okay, let's look at your 6 months. What are your tentpole moments? Where do we see holes? Where can we fill in? What are the event components that we need to bring in? Who are the people we need to bring into our community? You can get a little disillusioned that now it's, all we do is like work with influencers. So how can we make that a little bit more highbrow, past just like paying somebody to wear something? I think that's like such a one and done inorganic experience that like people don't like completely, they see through it now. And whereas people I think are a little fatalist about PR, where they're like, oh, print magazines are dead. And it's, they're not dead. They're still alive. They're just not. It used to be that print magazines had a website, and now some websites have a print magazine. And whereas influencers just had a one and done Instagram post, they now have like stories and newsletter and a shop my and all these other components that are like so interesting. And how can all of these things play together in a cohesive way? And yeah, I think like also I will say, having my own business now, I think so much more strategically than I used to, because at the end of the day, I always need to think about ways to prove my ROI, and that's money. So how can I show my worth? And a lot of the times, like PR, I think when people think of it as bullshit, is, what did you actually do for me? You like took me to this one dinner and introduced me to this one person. So I'm always thinking about ways, tangible ways to show our worth.
How has the actual work changed? Maybe Oscar might be an outlier because of whatever, but from when you joined the agency world, what were you doing? How were people discovering? How were they experiencing? How were they living in the story of brands? And where has that gone over the last 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most jarring like thing that I see physically in the office, which is like crazy, is just sample trafficking. It used to be that magazines were fighting over this one look, and you were like hawking out samples. You needed to work on a 6-month backtrack cadence to, we need to do, so that we're in the March issue, we needed to make sure that we had this collection, the spring collection that showed in September, we needed to make sure that we had this, all lined up. And that is really not the priority anymore. It's no longer, also we used to be like, especially at Oscar, I mean at any agency, like you would want a celebrity in your newest thing, like what just hit the runway. And now I think everybody is, no one can buy that, and people get like really frustrated when they see things that they can't buy. So now it's more, yeah, we'll do custom for somebody for like brand awareness, but at the end of the day, like it's probably more advantageous for someone to wear something that's in stores. They just need to be the first. But yeah, there's not that, like, the sample trafficking can still be stressful, but it's not nearly like the stress of it. Hillary, my PR director, she has worked at Marc Jacobs and Gabrielle Hearst, and we always talk about like the crazy stories that we had, like we're the same age. There's like the crazy stressful stories that we've had about making sure look 8 got to 2 different things on the same day, and having to be in a taxi to go drop it off at Vogue, wait for it to get shot, then stay with it, then bring it to Elle, and then stay with it, and then drop it off at a celebrity's because it was like the most coveted look. You need to make sure everyone got it. We don't work for the big houses. Big houses are in-house anyway, but for agencies, we did have that experience, and I don't think gone are those days, really.
How do people discover things today? If I am a new brand who comes to you and says, hey, I have this amazing thing, who do I need to talk to? How does that message get out into?
I think it really depends. I think for us, I'm less interested in new brands. It really depends. I think it's hard to have a singular, yes, I want to work with new brands that are cool and chic and fun, but it's really hard to have that business. And I sympathize with a lot of these designers that are trying to come up in the ranks, because at the end of the day, business is tough. Wholesale is hard. If you want to be a luxury designer and you're competing with Bottega Veneta and you're 2 years old, that's really hard. Why am I spending $4,000 with you and not $6,000 at Bottega if I'm spending that money?
Right.
I really like working on brands that kind of need a refresh, that need a repositioning, that need a modernization. That's the stuff that gets me really excited, because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? Like, emerging designers is why I like started, also another reason I wanted to start my own agency was because I just felt like they were getting failed left and center. But I think it's hard. You have to really want it. You have to be really smart and be really strategic. So I think it's like for a new designer, when we would sit down and craft out their plan, it's really, it's a tricky answer. It's budget depending. And it's not just budget for these designers in terms of doing a party or doing a show. It's making their production minimums. And so for us, it's very much organic, just trying to like get it on a celebrity, get it on a big influencer, or get a news article out there about them, or keep them on Vogue.com and Women's Wear for their reviews. That's for a new brand. That's really all you can do because they don't have the money to do an event. They don't have the money to like really make noise.
Reboot is such an interesting thing. And I remember when we met you the first time and we were looking at your portfolio and seeing that you were working with St. John, which is just such an interesting example of I had an idea in my mind of who that customer was and where that brand lived in the space.
Yeah.
Why was that an interesting project for you?
It's the most interesting. It's one of the most, they've been with us since basically the beginning. I think everybody has a story. Every fashion girl has some kind of story about St. John. And even the non-fashion girls do. Oh, my grandmother wore this. Oh, my bubby wore this on my bat mitzvah. Oh, this was my first suit at my first interview because I borrowed it from my aunt. And it's a great brand. It has great bones. And I think that's a really good example of a really smart CEO, Andy Liu, who's incredible, who's at the helm there now that it's been brought in with Lanvin Group. And what's cool about it is that it has so much goodwill, but it was about dusting it off and bringing it out of the attic. And I think that we have the right community that speaks to who that woman can be.
So I'm curious to examine that, right? All right, we have already painted the picture of who that customer was.
Yes.
Right? This is Aunt fill in the blank at the
Phyllis.
bat mitzvah party. Yeah, totally Phyllis. And the brand comes to you and says, we need a new customer.
Yeah, I think like they were at an interesting phase where the thing is you can't alienate the current customer while trying to get the new customer. So what we have to do, and what I try to do, is identify women that are the customers' grandchildren, nieces, women that don't make the core customer feel like, I don't know who this is, I don't know what this style is, but also speak to women that are shopping at our competitive set. And our competitive set is Row and Totême. But if you want a black tweed jacket, it's Celine. We're at that price point also. We're actually we're competitively below that. But why would someone spend $2,000 with us when they typically spend $4,000 with another brand? Like, they need to like it. They need to see it through someone else's eyes and see it reimagined. And so I think what we've done is just been able to tap into our network. And I always say this, we're as good as the product at the end of the day. We can always ask for a favor or two, but to see long-standing success, which we have with St. John, it means the product's actually really good. And it is. It's beautiful. There are things I go to so naturally in my wardrobe and will always, and there are things I share with my mom, and it's, I mix it with my Kate, or I mix it with, my vintage Levi's, and that's how the brand should be right now. And it should still be at the country club where it belongs. It should be still in the boardroom with the woman who's maybe on her way out of the board, but is still, picking her successor. And her successor, who should be female, should be seeing her in that and should say, oh, yeah, I want that too. And that's what's cool about it.
And how has that worked? Has that resonated with that customer?
I think it's working. I think it's a cool brand to work on because we have I think they listen to what we say because we're, I think that's where coming from an in-house world, like we have that in-house mentality, and we can, I think at least, with all of my brands, I try to see outside of just like the remit of PR. Okay, if I was like running this brand, like from a comms perspective, what can I suggest to make this successful? Because I need stuff to talk about. So it's in my best interest. I think a really good example of that, but also having incredible clients that trust you, is we did Edie Parker is one of our clients, and Brett Heyman is she's the coolest woman ever, but she pivoted from just having these incredible accessories to also include cannabis flower by Edie Parker, which is so cool for an Upper East Side chick to be like, oh no, I stand behind this. And she does it well. And part of her accessory offering became a burn bag, and it's a clutch and it's a lighter on the side, and you'd light your weed, your cigarette, whatever from it. And Hillary on my team actually had the idea to put them together. And because we were trying to figure out a collab for St. John, a few of the conversations just dried up. And we were like, she says, this is so weird. I was like, it's so weird. Let's see. And they got together and it was genius. We did a limited edition St. John by Edie Parker tweed burn bag. So it was two different burn bag styles done in St. John tweeds. They had Leighton Meester. We had her as our campaign star. We launched it for 420. And yeah, it was like an internet smash, and it was so cool. And again, it didn't alienate anybody, because I think when maybe an older woman who I think at this point has a little bit more of a tolerance for marijuana probably smokes it herself, and her mother probably isn't on Instagram looking at this, but she sees Leighton Meester and she's, that looks like my daughter, and you're comfortable with it, you're cool with it. And yeah, I think that was a really fun project and a good success, and I think shows the modernity of both brands to be able to embrace that kind of a concept.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by those sort of reboots. I'm just thinking about like the analog. I obviously know the menswear space better than the women's fashion space, but I think the number of times that Brioni has tried to go rock and roll, and you're like, God, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
who's the designer that somebody interesting went there?
Justin O'Shea went there, and he had Metallica, and he brought back the original, and it lasted for a month.
20 minutes.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That actually would have been really cool, but yeah.
Really cool, and you have to operate from some sort of an authentic first principle. And that, like, I associate a Brioni suit with my grandfather, who always looked impeccable.
Right.
But I don't associate it with Metallica, and maybe I want those two reference points, but maybe not in the same brand. So I'm just fascinated by how you've been able to do that.
I think it's just more about, it's slow and steady, and it's like we didn't do that like day one, that Edie Parker collaboration. I think that's been like a build, and I think like the other things we could do next are like maybe even less disruptive and more just like strategic in terms of business sense. What are the market holes, or what's a white space that we have in the business where we can like, where we can capitalize on that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like Metallica or Leighton Meester in a bra top, but it could be something that speaks to the brand.
Yeah. Do trends rise and fall faster? Do brands rise and fall faster today than they did 15 years ago?
Probably. It's because we have a digital consumption and just being on Instagram and just constantly scrolling. So you're constantly looking for something new. The news cycle is so different. The way we consume and appreciate fashion. 15 years ago, it was really hard to understand what happened on the runway show because you didn't have the same access to, now you can watch a live stream. Now you can see your favorite front row influencer live streaming from whatever show. There's a less exclusivity of what's coming off of the runway directly. So I think that that kind of directly correlates with how much we need of newness.
I think back to that fabulous scene with Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway, where they're talking about the cerulean sweater and the trickle-down effect to go from the runway to the bargain bin at Marshall's. Is that... Was that what it was?
I will say I've probably only seen Devil Wears Prada like maybe lifetime 4 times because it is deeply triggering. There's literally nothing.
Seems very familiar to you.
There's literally nothing like relaxing about watching that movie. And my parents like love to talk about it. And I'm like, please don't. It's just not,
But is that the same pattern of dissemination, that it goes down that path from something that we're showing at Paris Fashion Week to something that I'm finding in my local dress barn year or 2 years or 5 years later?
No, now it happens so much faster because people are literally watching what's happening at Loewe. The like head designers at X fast fashion company, XYZ fast fashion company are literally watching in real time what's being shown on the runway of Loewe, of Kate, of Celine, and they're just sitting there screenshotting on their phone and going back to their CAD the next day and making it, and they can make it faster, they can make it cheaper, and it arrives just a little bit before the real thing. So it doesn't even get to Dress Barn anymore.
it gets to shine 20 minutes before it gets
at the local. Yeah. And I think, to be honest, like, I mean, I still shop, like, I had this conversation last night, like, I still shop at Katz or Katz. Like, I try to limit how much I shop at, like, other fast fashion companies. I definitely don't buy trend-driven fast fashion, or I try not to, at least. I don't really shop trend anyway, but it is interesting. Like, sometimes you're like, the price of luxury right now is cost prohibitive to a point where it's not fun. And I think that's a real problem because there's no...
It seems like there's been a bifurcation or a hollowing out, right? You either have staggeringly expensive on one side or oppressively cheap on the other.
Yeah. It's just like, it isn't, I think Phoebe Philo, I think we have this conversation a lot with, like, and she did a great job in the New York Times explaining this stuff that's why this is so expensive. And when I talk to my brands and my designers that have it's so expensive for them too, but it's just everything is so expensive. But it's not really that fun to buy luxury in the same way. And it goes back to my earlier point about making it more of an experience. But yeah, I just think the prices, it's like you feel guilty. I feel guilty. Maybe it's the Jewish guilt. I don't at the end of the day, like, feel good about myself having spent so much money on something that I want. So that's just like an influx of present day.
And it doesn't feel like something that's all that distinctive or unique. And obviously there's this balance in fashion between I want something that is of the moment and I want something that is unique. It has been my belief for some time, and I'm spending a lot of time trying to examine this, whether this is true, that I thought there would be more democratization over time, that there would be more flowers blooming. And I think what we have seen instead is that the biggest brands have gotten even bigger and more powerful, and they're controlling more real estate, and they're controlling more airspace. Agree? Disagree?
Agree, 100%. At the end of the day, advertisers rule the roost. It doesn't matter how cool your brand is or how much people, if you don't advertise, you will get lost in that noise. It's no surprise that when you open up a magazine that there's a full look with an advertiser in there. It's no surprise that when somebody has an insane affiliate commission on these .com websites, that they're always included in the best of roundups. So it's not only that they're giving a higher commission to the websites, but they're also putting a spend behind them. That's not a surprise.
So is that the way that you build a modern brand?
I think, yeah. The affiliate thing is definitely. That's because that's a way that independent brands can play. That's a space that gives us a shot, right?
Yeah.
Because even if we don't have the ad spend behind it, we can say, look, we're on this affiliate model. Instead of our traditional 7%, we will bump you up to 20%.
Right.
So
you can do that easier than it is to write a $250,000 check for a spread.
And then, so at the same, exactly. So I think that's the way that we can play. Does it mean that we're getting like listicles and roundups instead of like juicy, beautiful editorial? Most likely, yes. But are you being included in the conversation of media? Yes.
I still come back to this question of where do people find new things? Is it happening on Instagram? Is it happening walking down the street? Is it happening looking at editorial shoots in magazines? Or is it just a fallacy to even engage in the question of people are not finding new things because all we see is Louis Vuitton everywhere?
I think you see Louis Vuitton in the big names, the big bold names, the Vogue's, L's, the Harper's, yes. I always use my college friends as like a demarker of this, which is that I think more and more, like, how are you guys finding out about brands? Because I'm too in the weeds, and I was always finding about brands to begin with anyway differently. But I think we can't ignore the newsletter generation. This is like the space that we're playing in. It's something that like I can see direct ROI on when I say, okay, we gifted this person this thing, they put it in, you knew that in their newsletter, and now you know that 800 people or 8 people clicked on it. You know that you made $8,000 or $80,000 or $0 on it. And I think that more and more, I think like the average consumer is getting their news from these girls. And I think it's less about, I think there's less brand loyalty and there's more loyalty to these Substack girls. So I think they'll say, oh, I looked at Becky or Laurel's Substack and I saw she did this X, Y, and Z thing, and they just bought it blindly. They don't know the brand, they don't know anything about it. They just know that this girl put it on, and they'll click the link and they'll buy it. I think that, yeah.
How do those people balance the I am putting this in here because I'm getting the fattest commission versus I actually have a particular point of view? And is that something that consumers understand?
I think I will say, having worked with them and being good friends with a lot of them, and they're very true to their vision. I have things that I would want somebody to push, and they're like, no,
I would like you to sell out, and they're like, I'm not going to. I got something more valuable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, they have their own, they're their own platform, they're their own voice, so they need to stay true and authentic, and I think they've all done a beautiful job with it. And I think that you can look at Leandra Medine, who's the first the leader of all of these, and I think that even when she does something that says #ad, she actually wears that. You see her in the street wearing it. And I think that they have this upper hand that a lot of the publications might not, where like every brand wants to work with them because they do have such a compelling readership, because they do convert, and you can really see it in real time. So they do have the luxury of manning they're also like mostly a one-woman show, and so they can keep it a little bit small, keep their profits high, and yeah, it's a great business.
What was once the September issue is now just whatever Leandra decides she loves.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. When you think about the things that you choose to bring into your life, you are exposed to everything.
Yes.
What is your filter today?
My filter today is, I wish I had more of a filter. I wish I had a little more of a filter. I actually have been, actually in I want less shit. And I want like good shit.
Yeah.
But I've just done like a huge like real Poshmark like cleansing. And there's just like too much stuff. And I think like for me also, like I'm so fortunate I get to wear so much of like my clients' things, and I get so much clothing order and whatever. I'm trying to be more mindful about taking stuff versus just like borrowing things. And for me, like what gets me excited is just like I'm building my adult girl wardrobe. Just for me, it's I'm in a different phase of my life. I'm a little bit older, which kills me to say, but I also own my own business, and I'm not like I have a startup, but I'm still the face of my business, but I still own my own business, right? So I can't really be like going to Prada every 5 minutes, although you would think, but it's just because I'm on the Friends and Family Prada sample sale list, and I do a great job at the Prada family sale.
All-star.
I'm an all-star. Yeah, I think like I will say, like I said, Christine Basilevsky was a great guide for teaching me how to shop, and my mom actually is also a really good shopper. Like she was always great at like finding the best thing at a Banana Republic and making it look like Celine. And I do have a lot of that in me, but I'm trying to do less of that. I'm trying to keep it a little bit more streamlined and simple.
What is Gabby's style?
I mean, I think I'm pretty classic. I think I'm pretty like New York. No frills. I'm not like, I don't do volume. I don't do a lot of crazy patterns. Sure, I'll do color every now and again, but mostly no. I'm just in a phase where also I travel so much that everything I consider, I travel so much to the point where I have to think, I have this massive coat that isn't the traditional one. It's this big shirling, and I look ridiculous in it, but I just wanted it so badly. And I got it they had an archive sale online, and I got it for $1,000. And I can't still believe that I got this coat that's $4,000 for $1,000. But by the way, I am trying to sell it, so I hope I make more than $1,000 off of it. But it's like, I can't wear that on the plane. Like, even if I'm going to like Europe in January, that's ridiculous to wear on a plane. Like, I'm not flying private. I have to buy a seat for that thing.
I'm gonna need 3 seats in the whole row for this.
I never wear that coat, and so like I don't need that coat. Like, that's not a practical good coat for me. Also, I live half the year basically in LA. Like, I don't need big coats like that. So I am weirdly a little bit more pragmatic about my shopping, but also like I have to be mindful about budget always, and I think everyone does. Even I was saying I was in Copenhagen and I was at Totême, and everything was so much less money, and I kept trying on these coats, and I wanted to feel so excited about it. And I had one coat that I really loved, and I was like, do I love this because it's cheaper here, or do I really love it? And it's easy when you walk. I was like, I should be like really excited. Like, I should be excited. Like, even Chanel in Paris, like, going to buy a pair of flats, like, that's fun. Like, I love that. I get really excited about that.
The frisian that comes from that.
Yeah, it's just, like, something I've always aspired to. I've always wanted it. Like, when I was younger, I never had it. I only got my first pair of Chanel flats a year ago, and that meant a lot to me. And now you go with your girlfriends when everyone,
What did that mean? I want to put a pin in that for a second, because that's such an interesting thing.
Yeah.
You attained this grail. What did that mean for you? What did it feel like?
It was great. It was so fun. It was so fun that I bought a pair of mules also. Oh, it meant a lot to me that I could do that for myself. And I started this business with no outside help, with a terrible credit score. I don't know if you've heard about the shopping, and no savings. Obviously, I didn't know what that was. And the fact that we've weathered a lot of storms, we have a lot of storms to come, but I could still like take a step back and go to Chanel and have that I had an experience. It was great, but it meant a lot to me because that was like a demarker of something. And yeah, I think like that when I was a little bit earlier to do a little callback of just being like, what did you call it? A more sophisticated materialist or a more deep materialist is things have value, things have meaning. We pass things down, right? Like, why is something important? Why is something of your grandmother's mean so much to you? Why does something that and it could be something so dumb. When Carrie lost her Carrie necklace, that was a thing, right? But it meant something. To me, buying these dumb Chanel flats meant, oh, these are my flats. That's so fun. That's the thing I'm going to put on every day because I've worked really fucking hard. And those are the shoes I'm going to walk to work in. And that meant something to me. And it still does. And I think, but also it gave me a good perspective when I put on a coat at Totême, which no knock on Totême, I love it. But I was like, this feels crazy. This feels not like something I've really worked for.
It's not transcendent.
It's not transcendent, yeah. And I think that's, for me, again, the concert reference. That's how I feel about shopping.
Yeah. We should probably land the plane here because we have an important dinner to get to.
We do. We have more martinis.
It's very important that we do that.
Yes.
But we've talked about a lot of things that you like.
Yes.
One thing that I like to ask at the end of every episode, 3 things that you think deserve more attention in the world that don't have it.
Things?
Ideas, brands, artists.
You're catching me at a bad time,
places.
Mark. I have a lot of things that I think are not getting a lot of attention.
We go through your entire
women's
client list.
reproductive rights, women's rights in general, human rights. Yeah. But if we're going to keep it in the canon of like things, like those things.
This is the Materialist. We have a structuralist podcast coming later.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's keep it to brands because that's my wheelhouse. I'm doing a really cool little press day preview for this London-based jewelry designer, Lucy Dellis. We're actually doing it here tomorrow. I really love her jewelry, and I was newly introduced with her to our good friend Victoria Lampley, and I'm really excited to work on it and work with her for tomorrow. I think she has really cool stuff, and I think like anything that's like fine jewelry that can also be, you can wear it every day and it's like you still feel fabulous, I think is like a hard thing to strike, and I think she does a great job, and so I'm excited to play with that jewelry later. I was just in Italy for a night last night, and I was shopping around a little bit, and I had never heard of this brand, but like it's a great brand. It's called Slowwear, and it's great men's, great women's. I was just like, I'm very into, oh wow, this is a great weight of this sweater. Like this blazer feels really good. Yeah. And then I realized they have a store like right down the street from me. So that brand was great. Just like classic Milanese, really chic. And then third brand that needs more attention, I think we're doing a great job with it, is this brand Align that we work with. I think that they're just a really cool, predominantly DTC, chic, fun girl brand. You asked me earlier, like, about emerging brands, and like I alluded that like maybe we don't need too many. This is great because they found a way to strike the balance between high quality trend at a really digestible price point that like girls have like a feverish like attention to. Like we did our press day with them, and like I have never had such a well-attended press day next to our Jaleel Bold collection. But I think that people were just like, it was just what we were talking about, the price point and just being so turned off to like feeling forced to spend thousands of dollars for a sweater where you can get like a great looking sweater for $200. And that's right. And also you didn't like, you're not buying from a fast fashion brand. This is limited run, considered, again, DTC. And I like that kind of a brand. Those were 3.
3 very good ones.
Yeah.
Gabrielle, Katz,
Thank you, Mark Bridge.
Thank you. If anybody wants to find you on the internets, you are on Instagram as...
I am _it's Gabby.
Any other platforms where you're chatting or where we can find your musings?
No.
Perfect. Find visual.
Yeah, I have a Shop My, which I should probably link to mine, which has some of my favorite things that I'm from my clients, from things that I'm shopping, products and all of that. But I should link.
That's the ultimate materialist.
Exactly.
Find.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of The Materialist. A huge thank you to Gabrielle Katz for sharing her insights on fashion, PR, and the art of thoughtful consumption. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves great stories about style and substance. The Materialist is a presentation of At Present Matchmaker to Extraordinary Jewelry.